Hello, I am Reverend Marguerite Morris, and I'm back to talk to you again today in reference to the death of Katherine Sarah Morris and the Greater Police Accountability Challenges in reference to her death and others. This is going to be clip number 2, and I'm going to watch the time here because I really don't want to put too much into this episode other than to show you a few of the primary discrepancies in that death investigation. And as I promised in the first video, I will follow up with later clips in reference to the activities of the actual police officers. So in the first video, I did not explain to you, and again, this is in reference to the death of Katherine Sarah Morris, I did not explain to you how she died. Katherine died from carbon monoxide poisoning from 2 charcoal grills lit in her car. They ruled it a suicide within 48 hours. We believe that it was a rush to determination, that there are more than 55 inconsistencies reported and found by investigators and persons across the country in that death investigation. So what I'm going to do very briefly in about 10 minutes today is just to show you a quick few of those that are so preposterous. And what's really kind of frustrating is that because persons locally haven't looked at that, there's no outrage, there's no call for inquiries. People have gone on with their life when this happened in Anne Arundel County. And I think seeing is believing. And as I've said before, you look at the evidence, come to your own conclusions, and if your child or loved one had died under these circumstances, would you just walk away and leave it? Or would you not press for answers? Again, if it were your loved one, you make the determination as to whether or not you would walk away or call for greater accountability in what our police department does and transparency. So one thing I'm going to copy on, and that took me a whole 2 minutes, we've got 8 minutes left, is that the way she died, again, she died from carbon monoxide poisoning, 2 charcoal grills lit in her car at Arundel's Mill Mall on a Saturday evening when the mall was full, the parking lot was full of moviegoers. She was a victim of marital fraud, was worth $100,000 dead, and we believe it to have been a copycat, possibly copycat killing, because just about 2 or 3 weeks before Kathy died, this was at the top of the Google search, and this is in reference to Kajima, and I want you to see that, and she was dubbed the Black Widow, and she killed three persons almost identical to the way Katherine died. When the 3rd person died, from carbon monoxide from charcoal grills, it wasn't until they could not find the keys in the car that they realized that those 3 men had died by murder and that it was not suicide. And again, Google that and you're going to see some of the facts almost mirror the exact circumstances of the way Katherine died. One of the things that they had in that, we talk about DNA and fingerprints. In that particular killing, the persons had ingested sleeping pills. So this is a bottle of sleeping pills, say, for example, that was found in Katherine's car. There was a bottle of sleeping pills found there over the counter. But that bottle did not have fingerprints on it. And what one of the private investigators pointed out to me, they said, now I want you to do this, Morris. So you have to take the bottle, and I want you to see this, and you have to hold the bottle. Is that not right? Then you have to press down and turn the cap to open the bottle. Did you all see that? You have to, let me do that one more time for you. You have to grip the bottle, press down and twist. But on this bottle, there are no DNA and there are no fingerprints of the deceased person. I also want to point out to you, and these are just point out real quickly the things that they did that just didn't, the alarm bells. This is an actual scene from the death scene itself. And behind where her body is found, there are 2 soda cans in this picture. They have straws out of them, or a straw coming up out of them. They were never fingerprinted by police, and DNA is never taken of that item. No person was ever, persons of interest were not alibied. No family members to this date have ever been questioned in reference to the death of Katherine Morris. So we talk about the DNA. Then there was the issue of the GPS. GPS records, and you might have heard me say this before. GPS records on your phone show the location of your cell phone. The police had did an extraction from her phone and given me what's called a PDF file. I took that PDF file and I flew along with ABC cameras to Las Vegas, where a forensics company did an extraction. With the comparison of the files while ABC cameras were rolling, they discovered that there were pieces or blocks of files missing from the police's PDF file that showed GPS settings of that phone possibly moving around and through Arundel Mills Mall. In addition, those GPS settings also showed that phone moving around Anne Arundel County when the police are alleging that Katherine's phone was with her body for 11 hours in Arundel Mills parking lot. That's what they're saying. But our GPS findings are showing that's quite different. Another thing with that night, and I'm looking at the time, I've got about 5 minutes left. We're going to talk about the grills that were found in her car. Now, private investigators said, well, these particular grills, when you light them, they flame up. And they did a simulation of that. And they said, this is the flame that you would get. So what the police are determining from their investigation, or lack thereof, is that on a Saturday night at Arundel Mills Mall, this girl got out of her car at 8 p.m. or 9 p.m. or 11 p.m. in the parking lot, lit these grills. These grills had to flame up. She had to pick them up and put them in a car in the parking lot, and no one noticed. Or she lit the grills inside the car. Now let's look at that again. When you light them, they flame up. So she had to light them either in the car or outside the car with traffic and persons moving around that parking lot. In addition, and one thing that is very alarming is that there were no upward burn marks in the car. Let's say she lit them in the car. Well, there's no upward burn. There was no burn damage in the car. How do we know that? I have the pictures of the car. The only fire damage, and you can see from this, is from the floor from a pan underneath the grills. But there's no upward burn marks. That didn't even warrant the police inviting the fire department to come in and make a determination. This is a picture of the car real quick. There's no upward burn marks. Again, overview. I'm going to go into detail about the specific officers in a future viewing. Then we want to talk about the greatest one, I think, is where they have alleged for 8 years changing stories about 4 different cameras that were in that parking lot on that car, or taking note of where that vehicle was. The first thing to hear, the police told me the video footage doesn't play because the footage is incompatible with systems. Then they told me, when they finally handed it to me, take it to the FBI, Morris, and have them help you with it. Of course, I knew that was ridiculous. The FBI like, why are you here? Then after the first year, they changed the story to the footage is not playing because of it's not playing because it's motion sensitive, therefore implying no motion in the parking lot, no video footage recording. Well, I want you to look at this, and this is the last video clippings that they have. There's a man walking across the parking lot. These are pictures of cars in the parking lot. So they're just ascertaining that on a Saturday evening in Arundel Mills parking lot, in overflow parking for a movie theater where movies are being shown up until 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, that no one ever got in their cars to leave the movie theater. No one ever came, and there was no activity in there. So therefore, for 5 years, they determined that. And what really ticked me off was in April, Altamari then changes the story, October of 2018. Altamari changed the story, goes, oh, well, the footage was deleted. Well, you think you could have told somebody that, or do you want us to just accept that the footage was deleted? You say one thing, the college says another, and if you want to see what the college safety officers say and get more detail about that, Chief Gary Lyles, I deposed him, Reverend Morris deposed him, recorded the depositions, and you can see that for yourself, where he says one thing and the Arundel County Police Department says another. The other thing, and as I see my time winding down, there's 2 really quick items. One is the homicide panel. They keep toting, says, oh, the homicide panel came back and concurred that this was a suicide. But the homicide panel asked the Anne Arundel County Police Department 3 questions. They asked them to determine first Reverend Morris's concerns about the missing video footage. We've already tackled that. The second thing that I'm going to talk about real quick is they also talked about that wanted them to confirm whether or not she had brought any of the items used to end her life. And there's no documentation as to that. They said that her credit card didn't show any activity, which is a half-truth, because I was able to determine that here's her card, here's the activity, right here if you can see it, and we'll supply it in detail. Not only was there plenty of activity that they did not report, But also the receipts from her purchases from the last few days of her life, I was able to get copies of them. And there's no sleeping pills, there's no lighter, there's no grills. None of that is on those receipts. Anne lied, as our state's attorney says, that she was told that they had found the receipts. Well, that's a falsehood. They did not ever find a receipt for anything that was used in Katherine Morris's life. And the last thing, as I see that I'm rounding up to that 10-minute mark, was that Carbonaro, and again, when you see the detail of this in the future, you're going to see John Poole's name, who's now a commander at Anne Arundel County Police Department. You're going to see Vince Carbonaro. You're going to see Keith Clark. You're going to see their names come up. But this is one of the things that Carbonaro did. Carbonaro reports to the homicide panel, or in one of his reports, maybe not to the homicide panel, he talks about 2 phone calls that Katherine made to individuals. 2 phone calls that she returned. There were people coming at her over the internet using aliases. They spent 3 hours, mind you, 3 hours from a military installation trying to get a hold of this college student. They were never alibied. And what Carbonaro, remember I said that they are protecting, and they did a controlled, maybe I didn't say this, we believe that they were operating under the instructions to, no matter what you reinvestigate or look into, this has to remain a suicide, and therefore their investigations were weak and did not do a thorough job. So as I'm trying to bring this to a close very quickly, Carbonaro reports 2 phone calls Katherine made, but what he doesn't report in his anything that would show that there was any possibility of Katherine Morris dying by any other means was suppressed and or manipulated by Anne Arundel County Police. And here's part of that proof. He reports 2 phone calls. What there are 3 additional phone calls, and our documentation shows that there were also email exchanges from these persons. Email exchanges. He reports none of that to the homicide panel. So here's video clip number 2. I'm bringing it to a close. I hope it's not too long, but stay tuned. Come back and see as I zero in and narrow this thing down to the activities of the actual police officers who will probably never be held accountable. They botched this thing so bad that nobody will probably ever be charged. But you as a community need to understand that there are issues in our county. These officers didn't all go away. Some are still on the force. And this is not talking about a bad police department in its entirety. That would be false and unfair. We're talking about a few possibly bad officers that are still on that force. And we as a community need to hold them accountable. Thank you. This is Reverend Marguerite Morris calling for greater police accountability in memory of her daughter, Katherine Sarah Morris. Thank you and have a great day.